What's up, guys? The first day of BlizzCon 2016 is over, and Blizzard showed off some pretty amazing stuff. There's a ton of news, so this video is just going to be a general recap of today's announcements for each game. This video would just be way too long if I ended up talking about every little detail, so I'll also be doing separate videos going into a bit more depth for the WoW and the Overwatch news. So with that in mind, let's get started. As Mike Morhaime noted at the opening ceremony, this BlizzCon marks Blizzard's 25th anniversary, the 10th BlizzCon, and the 20th anniversary for Diablo. So you'd expect them to announce a ton of stuff for each game, and I think they did it. First off, we have the Warcraft news. Right after BlizzCon, we'll be seeing patch 7.1.5 up on the PTR. This is a smaller patch, something along the lines of 6.2.3, so it's not going to have a ton of content, but there will be a few nice additions. One of these additions is something they're calling micro holidays. These are small scope, one-day events that just add some flavor to the world. They don't have pets or mounts or achievements, stuff that you would normally expect tied to holiday events. They don't have those things because they're just something sort of fun and different to do, more of a side activity. You're really not supposed to feel like you have to participate in them for some sort of game-changing reward, even a cosmetic reward. You should really only want to do them because you feel like it, because you just want to do them. There's not some other reward or ulterior motive going on here. The biggest feature in patch 7.1.5 is really the class updates. They're going to take a look at some of the talents and try to rebalance them, mostly to increase diversity, because they really don't like it when you have something like 95% of players that are picking the same talent build, so they'll probably end up nerfing some of them and buffing some others, just to make it so people change up their talents a bit more. We'll also be seeing some new and returning utility-focused abilities. So the goal here is really to scale back the ability prune that we had probably a bit too much of, going both into Warlords and in Legion. I mean, I thought they did too much of it in Warlords, and then they really went overboard going into Legion. And so they really want to add some more of those niche and more flavorful abilities back into the game, which I think is great, because what the point of Legion was really to enhance the class fantasy. That's what they talked about when they first showed it off at Gamescom in 2015, and I think that by removing some of those class iconic abilities, they really took out some of that class fantasy in an effort to sort of focus it more on the specialization. I think they actually went the wrong way, so it's good to see some of them returning and possibly some new abilities being added as well. Patch 7.2 was also revealed, and this is going to be the big patch that we've all been expecting. So of course it has a raid, the Tomb of Sargeras, which is a 9-boss raid, and of course there's also a new zone, so we're going to be returning back to the Broken Shore. This time it's going to be a fully fleshed out zone with tons of quests and everything that you'd expect. We're also going to have a new dungeon, which is the first patch dungeon in like 5 years, and it finally brings flying into the Broken Isles. Additionally, the class Order Hall campaign is continuing, and at the end, every class is going to be able to earn a unique mount tailored specifically to that class. And I think this is a really great way to do what I was saying earlier, enhance the class fantasy. It's what the expansion is all about, so being able to have a mount that really just represents your class and is made specifically to emphasize traits that your class has, I think that's a really great thing. Along the same lines, we're seeing a new artifact appearance unlocking for each spec. And unlike some of the others, this one is going to be unlocked through a solo skill challenge that's going to be, again, tailored specifically to your specialization. The others have been unlocked through time commitment or some form of group play, so I think it's really nice to emphasize a variety of different play styles. Some people are really great at doing group play, or that's at least what they really enjoy doing. Other people really enjoy doing that stuff that, might actually be grindy to other people. Having something that doesn't take a lot of time to do, or doesn't take you having to form a large group of other people to do, just rely on your own abilities and your own mastery of your class and spec, I think that's a really nice thing. As I mentioned, the Broken Shore is going to be the new zone. It's being compared to the Isle of Quel'Danas from patch 2.4, if anyone remembers that, or I think it's more like patch 5.3, the Isle of Thunder, for something a little more recent. New quests and vendors and areas are going to unlock over time and through player participation, so it's not going to be just time-gated. The players participating and doing all the quests on the server, that's going to be contributing to what unlocks and when. Additionally, the Burning Legion is also going to be attacking the other Broken Isle zones. Basically, the invasions from the pre-expansion patch, but they're going to be in the current content as well. which is really great because one of the common complaints with Legion is even though the expansion is supposedly focused on them, they really don't have much of a presence in the Broken Isles themselves. I mean, yeah, there was the whole lead-in, and there are a few demons in every zone, but it doesn't seem like we have that many. Of course, this is really to prevent the whole demon fatigue or orc fatigue thing that we had in Warlords. I think it's a good thing that they're using the Legion as, sort of a credible threat in this patch, instead of just sort of not really being around most of the time. And finally, at the end of the WoW panel, it was revealed that at some point in the near future, not sure if it's going to be 7.3 or maybe even it was a tease at the next expansion, they didn't really talk about it much, but we're going to be going to Argus, which, for lore fans, that's a pretty big deal. If you're not, what it means is that there's a nice, big, steady stream of content that Blizzard has planned out for us. They've been saying that for a long time, so I'm still a little skeptical. I know, they're talking about all these patches, and patch 7.1 was released quickly, and these patches already have, PTR dates and relative release timeframes, but after so many years of content droughts, it's a little bit hard to believe them, but I'll be really happy if we're finally seeing the end of the whole content drought thing, and this hint of patch 7.3 having a ton of content. If we're going to Argus, I expect we'll have a ton of stuff to do there. It's probably not going to be like Tanan Jungle or something. This is a whole planet that we're going to, so it was either patch 7.3 or maybe they were even teasing the next expansion. Seems a little unlikely to me, but it is possible. Finally, in Warcraft news, they're doing a new Make-A-Wish charity pet, and that's called Mischief the Fell Kitty. I think it's great that they do these things every so often, like they did the one for the Ebola Space Goat, and a couple of other ones like the Cinder Kitty. It really encourages people to donate money to these charities when they're also getting, a nice, cute little pet in return. If the proceeds were split 50-50 or something, it would be easier to criticize them for it, but considering 100% of the money goes to the charity, it's really hard to say it's not a good thing. Moving on to Overwatch news, the big reveal was of course Sombra, who was introduced with another one of the amazing animated shorts that the team does. I just love every single one of them. Sombra is a new offense hero who's described as a stealthy hacker. She has the ability to hack things like Torbjorn turrets or health packs, and even enemy heroes. Appropriately, she also has a stealth ability, which makes her completely invisible to the enemy team. Sombra is actually going to be up in the PTR next week, and was said to be released really, really soon. More maps are also coming. One of them is called Oasis, which is set in a high-tech city that was apparently terraformed in an Arabian desert. It's going to be a control map, also known as King of the Hill, but of course in Overwatch it's called Control, much like Nepal or Ilios. The cool feature mentioned for this one specifically is a jump pad, like some of the 90s shooters that Overwatch was influenced by. The other new map is called Eco Point Antarctica, and was created specifically for the new mode, the 1v1 Mystery Duel mode. Mystery Duel is part of a new play mode category that's called Arcade, which is essentially replacing and actually incorporating the current form of brawls. So in addition to 1v1s in this system, we'll also see 3v3s, 6v6 mystery brawls, and all of the old brawls we're used to, just going to be lumped together into their own playlist here. Like Sombra, Eco Point and the Arcade mode should be on the PTR next week. Oasis, though, is still being developed, so the current plan for that map is to see it on the PTR as early as December and potentially released in January, although they did note that could be delayed because it is still pretty early in development. The other big news was for Diablo III. Because it's the 20th anniversary, you'd expect something pretty big, and I think we got it. So patch 2.4.3 is the Darkening of Tristram, so Blizzard is recreating the original Diablo inside of Diablo 3. They're adding a 16-level dungeon with 4 of the bosses from the first game, and the art and sound are going to harken back to the old game from 20 years ago, including the original music and a special graphics filter to really capture the aesthetic of that era. They're describing it as a proper old-school Diablo experience, which I think seems pretty true. I mean, they're really going all out on this. The anniversary patch should be on the PTR next week, and it should release in January. The really big Diablo 3 news, though, wasn't to do with the 20th anniversary. It's the new hero class, the Necromancer. I mean, this is by far the most requested class from longtime Diablo players. They even gave him one of the fan-favorite abilities like Corpse Explosion. The Necromancer is going to be released in the Rise of the Necromancer pack, which will also include a pet, 2 new character slots, some more stash tabs, and some other cosmetic goodies. As you can probably tell by the name though, this pack isn't going to be free, which of course is upsetting to some people. I think it really depends on the price in terms of how well it's received. Somewhere along the lines of $10 or maybe even $15 seems pretty fair, considering an expansion is normally about $40, but I think that really no matter what they price it at, a certain subsection of people are going to complain. The Necromancer is scheduled to release in the second half of 2017, so it's still a ways off. Heroes of the Storm also had plenty of announcements. First up, we have 2 new heroes that were revealed, Varian Wrynn and Ragnaros. Varian is the first multi-class hero in the game, meaning that he can play as a warrior or assassin depending on his talent build, and in the talent system you'll also find several different versions of these builds, so you can make him more of a tankier assassin or more of a DPS-y style warrior. Ragnaros seems potentially even more interesting, at least to me. They're really trying to deliver on that raid boss fantasy that we got to some extent with Cho'Gall, but I think they're really going all out with Rag. And this is why I love Heroes. The varied characters offer a very different experience from other games in the genre, especially League of Legends, which is the one that I personally have the most familiarity with. In League, you just don't get guys like Cho'Gall or Abathur or Ragnaros, and in Heroes they're a lot less constrained by the metagame or the design. They really are willing to push these heroes to emphasize these characters, and I think that's one of the core things that Heroes of the Storm has that makes it stand out in the genre. As for release dates, Varian is scheduled to be released in the week of November 15th, and Ragnaros will follow soon after in December. Additionally, some heroes are getting some talent updates. Karazim, for example, was always supposed to be a hybrid, so really he should have been the first multi-class hero, and while working on Varian, they thought they could push him in more of that direction, so we should be seeing a nice talent update to make him deliver more on that hybrid fantasy. Along the same lines, Dahaka is going to be made more solid as a frontline solo warrior, and Artanis is getting some changes just to make him a better bruiser overall. Personally, I really like Artanis' kit, but I've always felt his numbers were a little bit too weak, so it's good to see him getting some updates. Last up for Heroes is the Nexus Challenge promotion. So this will probably be most interesting to people who have either never played Heroes before, or, like me, they used to play it quite a bit, but then after a while they just sort of stopped playing and maybe you've been gone for about a year or so. So by playing 15 and then 30 games with a friend, you're going to unlock perks in both Heroes of the Storm and in Overwatch. And this includes some stuff like a Genji skin, 5 heroes, a stim pack, and a mount. I like that they're actually giving away more characters, because if you've been away from the game for a while like I have, it just feels daunting to try and catch up, both in terms of obtaining knowledge on how these heroes play and what they're capable of, and in terms of actually trying to unlock some of them and, not spend a ton of cash, because the heroes are pretty pricey, so if you don't have a ton of gold saved up, unlocking quite a few of them will cost you quite a bit of money, so getting 5 of them for free is a pretty nice thing, and it makes for less of a barrier to entry to the game. In Hearthstone news, they revealed their newest expansion, The Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. It's all about the shady criminal underworld of the Goblin City, filled with different gangs all vying for power and competing with each other. The big gameplay feature is the new tri-class card system, which are cards that can be used by 3 different classes. For example, there's one specific subset that is for mages, priests, and warlocks only. I think that this is a pretty cool design mechanic, and it's in between neutral and class cards, which is a nice space to fill. The expansion is coming out soon. It should release sometime in early December. I love the zany nature of Hearthstone that lets Blizzard take the more lighthearted aspects of the Warcraft universe and just amp them up to extreme levels. Gadgetzan in WoW is just kind of this boarding city that really only serves as a low-level quest hub, but you can imagine that in lore it actually is supposed to have all these different gangs and all these different factions and criminals skirting around the place. So conceptually, I really love the expansion's theme and everything, and some of the new cards actually do seem pretty interesting. Personally though, it'll be hard to get me back into Hearthstone. I spent a lot of money early on, and now all of those cards that I liked and unlocked through packs back in the first adventures and the first expansions, they're unusable in the standard format. And I get that I could go into Wild and have fun, or that it's a card game and that it's to be expected that times change and, sets become outdated. I guess I just decided that I'm not willing or able to spend hundreds on microtransactions every year just to be competitive in the game. I can only afford to be a whale for a couple of games, and right now, Hearthstone just isn't on that list. But I'm sure there's a ton of people out there who are excited and aren't going to have that problem. Finally, we have Starcraft II, essentially the red-headed stepchild of Blizzard's games, at least it seems that way. They talked about how the final set of the Nova Covert Ops missions will be released on November 22nd. I actually haven't played those myself, but I have heard fairly good things about the overall gameplay. I mean, yeah, they're pretty short, but the story's okay, and they're pretty fun. Maybe the price tag's a little high, but overall I've heard mostly positive things, so it's nice to do that and see that finally completed. And they've said that this is actually going to complete Nova's story, at least for now, so hopefully it'll have a satisfying resolution. They also said that the co-op missions added in Legacy of the Void have proven to be pretty popular and successful, so they're going to be adding some new co-op missions and a new co-op commander named Stukov. But probably the biggest thing for the average Starcraft II player, I think, is the addition of the new microtransactions. So this is called the War Chest, and it's described as a virtual treasure map that you purchase, and that allows you to earn some content, cosmetic content, through play. So the War Chest will give you access to skins and digital comics, and a portion of the proceeds go to supporting esports initiatives. I'm not sure how the Starcraft II player base feels about this. I get that adding in microtransactions to this game that isn't currently producing much money is good in terms of keeping it afloat, but I think that a lot of people are going to find it intrusive. I guess it depends on what the price point is. I don't really have that much of a problem with it if it's priced pretty fairly. I do think it's a little bit odd though how you're not just buying the skins directly, but you're buying the ability to unlock the skins. It's kind of a weird system to me, but I don't know how everyone else feels about that one. As I said earlier, I know I didn't cover absolutely everything here. It's not totally comprehensive, but I did try to cover the major stuff. If you're interested in watching all of the panels yourself, it's not too late to buy a virtual ticket. You can usually buy them up to about 2 weeks after the convention. Of course, everything will also be uploaded to YouTube probably, so you don't have to do that, but the virtual ticket does get you some pretty cool in-game stuff, like the Murloc pets for WoW and the Overwatch Bastion skin, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Anyway, that brings me to the end of this video. I'll be sure to make another recapping day 2 of the convention, and like I mentioned earlier, there should be a video talking specifically about some Warcraft stuff and some Overwatch stuff, going into a bit more detail, mostly because I had to cover so much news from BlizzCon itself and cover all of the games, but I could really talk a lot more about some of the stuff for Overwatch and Warcraft specifically. As always, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.